Hi there. I was just cleaning out my kegerator and I thought that I might go over a few things that kind of helped me when I built my kegerator. It's all done now, as you can see, but I built it out of a regular fridge, and I know when I was building it, I could have used maybe some more tips and some of the things people did that made things easier for them. So I did a few things that I hadn't seen online before, so maybe I'll go over a couple of them and maybe it'll help you out. I started with a 4.3 liter fridge and freezer combo. It seemed kind of hard just to find just the fridges, at least used, which I bought because I wanted to do this rather cheaply instead of just buying a ready-made one. So a 4.3 liter fridge did work, but it had the freezer compartment. So I know online there's a lot of posts about how to remedy that so it works as a kegerator. And you're probably familiar with having to bend down this freezer tray that would be sitting up here as the freezer, and once you bend that down, you can then use it as a just a fridge, and it works pretty good. The only word of caution, and if you're going to be doing this you probably already know, is this little refrigeration line that comes in the back there. It's just copper, and you have to be careful because if you kink it, the fridge is essentially ruined. So you have to do that sort of carefully. What I did was I put a heater kind of in front of the door there and kind of warmed it up inside, make sure it was obviously off for quite a while, and kind of made sure everything's fairly warm. And then I put just a small tube in behind there where I was bending it, bent it slowly, and it worked pretty good. No problem, the fridge still works. And then I also moved the controls for the fridge used to be right here, but it was in the way of the keg, so all I did was kind of cut those lines there, put some butt splices, heat shrink it, and extended it and moved it up there. So that's where the control is for the kegerator, as well as the thermostat wires, that sort of thing. So I mounted them up there, and works pretty good. And once that was done, I had to get a manifold for the kegerator. I got a 3-port manifold there, and the reason I did that was for each keg it holds 2 ball lock corny kegs, and the third one I use for carbonating. And as you can see, it has the output on the gas line here. And so that goes on the output of the keg when you're forced carbonating, if you want to do maybe force carbonate quickly. And so that way the carbon dioxide goes down the dip tube into the beer, and it seems to carbonate a little better for if you want to carbonate something quickly. So that's kind of why I did the 3-port manifold. And then you can, turn the 2 off while you're carbonating the third one or what have you. And then when I'm using it, it's kind of just wind up stored in the back. And I mounted the manifold. I use a thing called Sintra. I used to work at a sign place, and I want to when I did the fridge, I wanted to use materials not like wood or anything like that, or steel or things that would rust very much, because in a kind of humid fridge that's what's going to happen. So I use a thing called Sintra, and if you go to a sign shop or something, they'd probably have it. It's 10 mil Sintra. It's kind of like this. It's a plastic. Pretty durable. You can drill into it, doesn't crack too easily, it's fairly hard, and it worked really well as a mounting surface for that manifold. So I used 2-way tape, double-sided tape, to adhere it to the fridge there, and then that's where the manifold kind of screwed into the back there, so it worked pretty good. The door of the fridge, obviously it wasn't made to be a kegerator, so it used to have holders and things like that, shelves that a fridge would have, but it wouldn't work as a kegerator because once the kegs are in, fridge door wouldn't close. So what I did was just took a little Dremel and dremeled sort of the plastic edge, so you can see all the way around, and then that shelving just kind of pulled right off and left with a flat surface. But there's foam in the door, so obviously I want to cover that, and I've read people using different things to cover it, tin, other things. And so I got another sign shop idea I use a thing called dye bond, alu panel. It's for making signs, and what it is it's almost like a plastic. You can see that there. It's almost like a plastic material of a core, and it's sandwiched between thin sheets of aluminum. So it's plastic in the middle with aluminum, so it's very rigid. It won't rust. Has a nice finish, nice kind of glossy white finish. Fairly easy to cut. Use a table saw. There's other things people do, but it's not too hard to cut. And so I cut a piece out to fit the door, and then used a you can use silicone, you can use any kind of a adhesive like that would hold on there. It's safe for foam, which would be inside the door. And I stuck that on there, and then once it was dry, I just took and ran a bead of silicone all along the edges there, just so there would be no leakage and you wouldn't get any moisture trapped in behind there. So you have a nice finished door, and it works pretty well. Easy to work with. And then from there, once that was all done, the kegerator is more or less done, but I had to put my beer tower on. And the beer tower I got was just a standard double tap beer tower. I opted for the Perlick faucets. There's a couple of other rear sealing, or is it forward sealing? I don't know, but it's better than the standard faucets that come with your taps, and it's a lot more money to buy them. And I was kind of humming and hawing whether I should do it, but looking back on it, they work so well. They don't gum up. If you're not pouring a beer every day out of them, your beer still comes out fresh. Your taps don't get sticky. Well worth the investment. So that'd be something that I would definitely do. When I drilled my tower, you have to kind of make sure that there's no beer or refrigeration lines running through the top of your fridge. And if you plug it in, you can, generally there's none on the top, but if you plug in your fridge and kind of feel for the warm spots, you can usually feel where the refrigeration lines are running, so as not to have any problems with drilling through in the wrong spot. So I did that. It was no problem. There was none running up there. So I drilled my hole with a hole saw. And the beer towers usually come with screws to mount them. But what I did, because screws I don't think would hold very well, you get a wobbly tower. And then some people said, well, just use a nut and bolt, which I did, which was stainless steel as well to avoid rust. But instead of just having it come through the top of the fridge and using a nut and bolt, or even a big fender washer, again, I use a piece of this dye bond material, cut a hole in it for the beer lines, and then put the nut and bolt through that, so it made it a lot sturdier. The tower is really solid on there. It doesn't move, doesn't wobble, and again, it worked really well. And it wasn't something I'd seen a lot before, but it worked good. And then this little contraption here, you may have read about them, maybe not, but it is just kind of a simple cooler for your tower, because if you just have your beer lines running up there, the cool air of the fridge generally doesn't move up there, and you're left with kind of your first beer is kind of warm. And I've read that people have used copper and other things to kind of keep that top cool. But what I did was, I don't think it costs any more because copper is expensive. And it basically is a little project box. I'm not sure if you can see. There's lots of plans online how to build these. I'll just say that they work really well. A little 12 volt fan, and with a little 12 volt adapter cord coming through the back, and to power it. And inside there, the fan blows through this kind of a bushing into this, I'm not sure what the diameter of the plastic vinyl tubing is, but probably about 1.25 inches or so. Not too important. But the big thing is you're getting air from the fridge is blowing through here up into the tower, which is keeping the tower a lot cooler for that first pour. And if I open this up, I also put extra insulation in the tower. And that was kind of the insulation from the fridge that I drilled out with the tower. And inside I put a little extra insulation, and you can feel the cold air blowing up from the fridge. Keeps everything a lot colder. Works really well. Pretty easy to build. Fairly cheap. And works well. The only other thing I did was, if you have a 5-pound CO2 tank, it would have mounted nicely right in the back shelf there. I ended up with a 20-pound tank, just what I got for a good price. So that's what I bought. And it just sits right out here. And the CO2 line runs through the back into the fridge, kind of right up there, into the manifold. So again, take care when you're drilling through the fridge, anywhere in the fridge, as you don't want to hit any refrigeration lines and wreck your fridge. So again, feel for the warm spots. You can usually tell. I drilled kind of a pilot hole there, it was fine, and just widened it up and put the CO2 line through there. Everything's now back in the kegerator. Got the 2 kegs fit nicely in there, like so. Shut the door. All fits well. If you want, you can put your beverage company logo on the front of your fridge. Purely aesthetic. I think it looks cool. Turned out well. And yeah, that's it. There's my kegerator. Works well for me. And yeah, hopefully it works well for you. Good luck.